Okay, so we're going to start our meeting, 6:30. Today is the Selectmen meeting of May 10th, 2022. Roll call, myself, Bob Carlson, the first selectman. We also have with us Selectwoman Nicole Porter, Selectman Brett Mastriani. As usual, start by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation, under indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have anyone that would like to comment this evening on a non-agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move right along. Any comments by either of the two selectmen? Nicole? No. Brett? Okay. Comments by the first selectman. Two quick ones. I'd be remiss if I didn't wish my wife happy birthday. Hopefully she's online and she heard me say that. Secondly, I wanted to let you know that I did attend yesterday. David Guy, he's the Marine that we were helping out, try to get him relocated. We got him relocated up in Chaplin, Connecticut at the veterans camp. And I don't know if you know, but he had passed. And they had a nice ceremony yesterday afternoon. Myself, Trooper Jason McCarthy, and Cheryl Haas attended, as well as a representative from the Attorney General's office. It was nice. It was about 20 people. They did the 21 gun salute and lowered the flag at half mast, and it was a nice ceremony. Said on that, old business. We're going to start with a Wendy Burry from the Cultural Coalition asked if she'd give us an update. I know she's been looking at different types of stages. I see Wendy's online. So Wendy, welcome to our meeting. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, we wanted to just give an update of where we are in the process of, I'm just going to actually share my screen if that's okay, and do a quick PowerPoint because we love PowerPoints. And I'm hoping that we can give you information and then get a little bit of feedback from you all, which would be really helpful to us as we move forward. So you can see this okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of always lay the foundation work around the work that the Cultural Coalition does to serve our sector. We are this region's designated regional service organization. We serve all of Eastern Connecticut, 42 towns, 25% of Connecticut's municipalities, and we are the field office for the Connecticut Office of the Arts to support the Department of Economic and Community Development. So that is our role in this community. But just to lay a couple facts, just to make sure we're all kind of on the same page about what has happened through COVID. Just recent data that came out from the Bureau of Economic Analysis for the creative economy for the state of Connecticut. The US arts economy shrank at nearly twice the rate of the entire economy as a whole. Arts and cultural production fell 6.4% compared with a 3.4% decline in the overall economy. That's one factoid. And then obviously certain industries within the arts and cultural sector were hit really hard. When we think about those performing arts presenters and performing arts companies, they joined oil drilling and exploration and air transportation as the steepest declining areas of the US economy in 2020. And as a comparison from 2017 to 2020, so we don't have the newest data from 2021 and even getting into 2022, but as of the end of 2020, we had lost almost 10,000 jobs in the arts sector. And that before pre-COVID, arts and culture was 3.5% of Connecticut's economy. We're at 3.2 at the end of 2020, probably declined much steeper by the end and into 2021, but that's actually not a huge, not as big of a hit because the other parts of arts and culture sectors kind of remained in terms of the creative economy. But it is still an area that obviously with COVID kind of remaining, arts and culture is still being impacted and has been seriously impacted. So just as a reminder of kind of where we started, last August in 2021, your Board of Selectmen allocated $15,000 of your ARPA funds to arts and culture to be administered by our organization, the Cultural Coalition. And right after that began in August, we began a series of roundtables to really dig in and talk with your arts and culture community in the town to find out what the needs were and the greatest and highest best use of those funds. And so this just gives you an outline of actually all the roundtable meetings we held. They were open. We tried to do the best we could in terms of outreach and getting people to the table. We were never able to find the right time and the right date ever, but we did the best we could. But obviously we held meetings just bringing people together to talk about the impact of COVID on their organizations or their businesses, then to talk about their needs. We moved into kind of specific discussion around Milltown Arts and the formation of that organization. We began the discussion in December around not so much individual needs and a grant program potentially, but really thinking about what collective purchasing might look like, simply because everybody was talking about the same types of events that they were going to have when they came out of COVID, and the needs that they had and the costs that they were bearing that often can be a big barrier in terms of doing big events. So in January, then we kind of got into a little bit more deeper discussion around collective purchasing, what would be most helpful, where could this money go, and what kind of items could be shared in terms of purchasing, or at least in terms of collaboration. Marketing and promotion was an option. And then we got into the discussion around major event needs. And this is when portable stages came up. And that kind of brief discussion led into a much longer discussion around how many organizations would love to have access to a portable stage that they could use once or twice a year for their major anchor events. And in some cases, the only event they do, and why that organization exists. So that began a kind of a we're now into however many months of a discussion of portable stages. And this seems to be the one that we've gotten most feedback and the most interest in, and where we can see the most benefit for the town and for those organizations. So at the end in April, Laura Tillinghast has actually been great at doing once we took it all the way to the kind of level of saying we needed, the portable stage was the best option and the highest and best use. Laura really dug into going and looking at the options from a user perspective. The Cultural Coalition doesn't use a portable stage. We don't really need one, don't need access to one. So we needed the users to actually do the work around what kind of size, what kind of elements, what could it look like, what are your needs as an event provider? And so she did a lot of that legwork. Organizations that have been included in this conversation and part of this conversation: Wheeler Library, Milltown Arts, the Nosto Ag Fair, Nosto Fest, the PTO president, and then the Farmers Market Theater Company, which is a newer resident, obviously members of the Board of Selectmen and EDC and Sustainable CT, and a representative and a resident of North Stonington from Chelsea Groton Bank. And so we also did a survey of those groups and just asked, kind of if you had access to a portable stage, would you be interested in it? What would you think? And so we had 6 responses from 6 organizations, which is kind of the core group of organizations who've been working with us. And they're listed up at the top. And we asked, and 100% said, yes, we'd be interested and we'd love to have access to it. And then we asked them kind of how many times would you actually be able to use something like that? When you add them all up, it's somewhere between 15 and 30 with the potential of more, but also the potential for less. But 15 to 30 seemed to be where everybody fell for the 6 organizers. And this gives you an idea of where that is. The Nosto Artisan Farm Markets, which would be, I hope they're 6 to 8 this year, but hopefully growing to 8 to 10 next year. So that's an option. Music events, 4 to 6 annually. The North Stonington PTO Fall Fest, graduation ceremonies, award ceremonies, field days. So the schools are very interested in having access to a portable stage. And then various stage shows, acts from the North Stonington Fair, perhaps an off-season event. It creates opportunities for new events, but also really provides a service and a need for those that are existing. And then a few other ideas that they put forward: outdoor summer theater, concerts, storytellers, puppeteers, animal program, family events, authors. So we definitely see that there's use for a portable stage by enough organizations that would want to have access to it. Whether or not it justifies the cost is really where we wanted your feedback for. So Laura was great to kind of dig through probably, I think, Laura, I'm not sure if you're on the call. I can't see if that's your phone number on there. If you are, can you pop off and just tell me that you're here? I was hoping that was her number down at the bottom. Okay, so I'd hope that she would be here so she could answer some of those specific questions if you have them. Yeah. Oh, you are.
Hi, I'm in person.
Oh, you're in person.
I'm in the building.
I can't see you. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Great. So then if there's any specific questions I want Laura to do to answer those, but this is her legwork that I'm just presenting and what she had in terms of the $15,000, the stage option, where makes the most sense is, and I'm going to also share a video if you want to. It's just the setup, but essentially you can see the stage here. This is by a company called Stage Right. It is a modular stage and it has a set of stairs, but you essentially put them all together and connect them. And it creates a 16 by 20 foot stage, which, as Laura said, this would be an appropriate size and usable for most of the organizations who were talking about it. And then obviously stairs on one side. The total price with delivery is $11,365. Now, I know Laura talked about price increases and changes due to inflation and other things. But the last time she checked on it, at least, and I'll let her speak to that, was quoted at $11,365, which leaves some money for additional funds for a generator, which would be needed for sound systems and things like that. So it's a good option. It's a basic option. It's probably the most basic option you're going to get in terms of $11,000. It does require people to put it together, to deliver it, to pick it up, it needs storage. And it probably, I think the video that we saw and we can share is kind of a 2-person job to set it up and break it down. They're not too heavy. We have all the specs in terms of the weight, but they would need to be stored. They'd need to be delivered. They need to be set up and broken down. And if the town chooses to purchase this and loan it out, then there'd be discussion around where would it be stored? How would that process, what would that process look like? We've discussed kind of just putting out there, is there an option for kind of a modest fee for use by the organizations just to help cover some of those costs for maintenance and even labor to do that. But this is a good, simple option. It's not the biggest, and there's some really exciting things out there. But let me just show you the kind of just to float it out there. Another option, if you wanted to invest in something that really actually might be not just easier but long term, something that may be better for the town and easier on everybody else. And this is our option number 2. That does go above budget, but just want to throw it out there. This is on wheels. And so it's a trailer. And the idea that you just hook up the trailer to a truck and drive it to wherever you need to go. And keep in mind that many of your big events are in some pretty interesting fields and some areas out there. So this actually just makes it drivable. You drive it up. It's an 8.5 by 20 foot tandem axle trailer, and Laura can speak to this as well. But it's a fully contained and on wheels for portability. Very easy setup. You just flip the things open. It does have a much longer lead time for delivery and purchase, but it is also twice the price. But we just wanted to make sure you saw, in terms of labor and maintenance and all the things that are to go into maintaining the portable stage, the small size, you could just bump up and think about how this really could serve all those organizations and your schools and really just make it easier and more self-contained in terms of wear and tear and things like that. So those were the 2 options. I just want to set the considerations, and I'd love to turn it over to Laura for a second. Things we were thinking about: the setup and breakdown needs. Who would be responsible for setting up and breaking down? Who owns them or owns the stage? What are the labor needs in terms of 1 person, 2 person, 3, the weight and stuff like that? Transportation, how would it be transported from site to site? Where would it be stored? And then, like we said, a modest fee, which would really help these organizations. They could spend thousands of dollars to rent a stage for one event. If there was a very modest fee from many organizations over the course of a year for use of this, you all could help offset those costs to the town potentially. There is the option of potentially having one organization own it instead of the town. You then would potentially, the one thing I've thought about is who has control over the events, right? You usually have public events require some regulatory kind of, public, whether it be zoning, whether it be whatever, in terms of permission. But if you owned it and kind of managed and administered that portable stage, you would have more control over the town in terms of how many events a year, where it's going, and what you want it to be used for, versus having an organization be the owner of it and being responsible for that in some way, shape. Laura, anything you want to add in terms of I think, first of all, thank you, Laura, for all of your work on everything this past couple months, and for being a participant all along through all these months of our conversations with many other people as well. But anything you want to add here that we should consider? I do have kind of the YouTube videos up there if we wanted to share those, or anything else, but just I'll give you the floor for a second for this update.
That way they can see you, Laura.
Thank you. Hold on. Thank you, Wendy, for thanking me. It was a pleasure to be involved with the Cultural Coalition over the past several months, trying to define this need and bring this to the town. So the stage line is not the bottom of the line. Stage right, sorry, is not the bottom of the line. It's sort of mid-low for us. I priced everything from an $8,000 option that would really only be feasible indoors. This one actually has the feet adjust for a total of 30 inches. So it would accommodate fields, it would accommodate angles, it would accommodate unlevel ground, sort of a thing. So it does need to be set up and taken down. The trailers, once you got into the movable ones, I spoke to a couple of companies that wouldn't speak to me unless my budget was over $150,000. They go way top of the line. It takes about 5 minutes and one button to push it, and it sets up an entire stage. The town could actually probably make money renting it out to other towns, but it's a huge investment. It was fun to work with Jody Whipple from North Stonington Agricultural Fair, and also with Jen Strunk, who is from the Lake Parades. I know you guys know Jen. And to kind of identify when we realized that aha moment that it was like, oh, this would be fantastic for all of us to be able to use something like this. And the schools could benefit and our town could benefit. It would be really great to see something like this come to our town. Like, it could really help. Do you guys have questions for me?
I do. What's the lead time on the first stage we looked
The
at?
stage right stage is actually a very quick turnover. I can have it in 6 weeks. They have a limited supply, like everyone else in the world right now. They're having supply chain issues, but they do have enough in stock right now to turn that stage back out to us 16 by 20 in 6 weeks. I was excited because I thought maybe we could have it for the June market, the June farmers market. But again, it could have so many uses, but I don't know if we'd be able to use it for graduation, but the fair could possibly benefit from it. I think No Stowe Fest could possibly benefit from it if we went with that model.
Yeah, I see a lot of benefit actually. And I don't, all the worries about storage, setting up, we got it all under control. The highway department can do all of that. So
Okay.
it's not a big deal. We can even store it at the highway department if we had to. So I don't see that being a problem. I do see a lot of uses for it. What do you think the average price would be if the town was going to rent it out for an event? Would it be $100, $200? Not counting the farmers market.
I think to get a full image on that, I would want to probably get a price on insuring it in case somebody kind of threw it off the edge. I think that would probably be figure out how an hour to set it up, an hour to break it down, and the cost of insurance, and set it at that. $100, $150 seems extremely reasonable for an event. I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer that one.
One set of stairs up and one set of stairs down.
There's actually only one set of stairs on this estimate. The original estimate, I asked for all the bells and whistles with the stage skirting, with 2 sets of stairs with railings on the side. This one has one set of stairs. They're about $600 to add. We can certainly look into that. And then the estimate on the generator, we got as big as we could possibly think we would need. I think that's where the room for movement is. And it's like a top of the line silent generator that you could have running next to you and not necessarily know what's going on, to not interfere with music or performance that was going on. So we would have a little bit of room if you wanted a second set of stairs added.
Yeah, I think the second set of stairs, when I think of graduation, it'd be nice to be able to come up, get you to go
Correct.
back down.
I think at that one, you'd want to look at a ramp.
What,
A ramp. I'd hate to say it, but I think to make it ADA compatible and
That's true.
to make it accessible to more people, we would want to look at a ramp, and those are available. I would reach out to Kip and get a price on that.
So maybe you could get a price list of some of the options that we could look at, and we could maybe at that next meeting vote to get this going.
Okay.
We may have a special meeting down the road, who knows, but we'd like to get it for you to use at the farmers market. We know the fairs, I think July 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Yeah.
But the sooner the better. We won't have it for graduation this year, but in future years. I think too, if it's the same highway department crew that does it, they're going to get good at it.
And it'll get
They'll know
less
exactly-
complicated each time. Correct.
Exactly. First time's going to take a while, but each time will be easier. And I
Like
think,
the sign for the
yeah, like that.
the market this morning.
Any comment from the selectmen?
No, I think, excuse me, the only thing I was going to ask is the storage and the size. But in hearing you say that the highway department would be able to help with setup and breakdown, and also have a place to store it, if that's
I
not
haven't
an
asked them
issue.
that
then-
yet. I'm just guessing.
Do we know, once it's all disassembled, how big?
How
of a
much square
footprint
footage it takes up? I don't. I can ask my rep that and find out from him. The panels themselves, so it's a series of,
I actually have some of the specs. There's a sheet on your sheet that does have the
This-
weight of each piece and the actual size, and then kind of once you talk, but each piece is going to be, you'd have to add them all together.
yeah, the supports, I believe, fold up. So that, you're not talking a big height thing, but you might be talking, because now we need 4 of them, you might be talking maybe 6 or 8
8
feet.
by 10, because
wide.
so you said it's 16 by 20.
16 by 20, but it's modular. So you could go 16 by 20, or you could go any increment of 4 by 6.
Gotcha.
So that's several panels across in 2 rows, but you could do, my original quote was for 12 by 16. You could certainly make a smaller stage, 12 by 16. It's completely adjustable. The panels, the flooring panels are 4 by 6. So any multiple, you could make them all in one row if we had enough supports on the bottom.
So I think we could rent out the generator and the stage separately too. So you might want the stage, but you don't need the generator, possibly, or maybe you need both, and could be a fee for each. So I think when we get all the options, it'd be a nice thing to talk about again and decide how we want to order and how much money is in the budget and so on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much all your questions of the things that you need to figure out, I wrote down as I was listening to it. I'm like, storage, ownership, insurance.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of having some kind of charges for use of it, especially if our highway department's going to be the ones that are moving around. I just don't want to see the taxpayers incur more costs
Correct.
because an association's using the stage. One thing I didn't see, is it an indoor outdoor stage?
It is. So this flooring is geared for indoor outdoor. It's non-slip. And then he said he would leave it up for maybe 5 days max. If it was pouring rain, he said 4.
Okay, so they could.
He wouldn't leave it
the
up for a
whole parade.
season. We could absolutely leave
I mean,
it up
not the
for
parade,
the
the fair.
fair. The
Okay.
four, if it was pouring rain, I'd probably, if the weather was expecting to be pouring rain,
or
maybe we'd
cover
think
it with-
about
Yeah,
it
you
or
put a
something.
canvas on it, right?
Correct. We could
Top.
put a tarp over it. Yeah. But yes, it's for indoor, outdoor. This was really geared towards having it at No Stow Fest on the lawn with an angle, trying to figure out people getting on and off it safely, kind of a
Right.
thing.
And then the insurance would be the other question
Yeah.
on it, especially if we let another organization use it. How does that work if they destroyed it while they had it?
Well, just like us at the farmer's market, I'm going to guess that person who's renting it would have to have some kind of liability insurance.
Yeah, typically the organization who has the event should have in all. So I would just be verifying their event insurance as the town, verify that they, copy of their certificate of insurance. And then that hopefully they need to do a rider on it or specifically mention it, but typically their event insurance would cover something like that.
Okay.
Great. Are there any questions from the audience online or in person, and or Christine, if there's anything we missed? Nothing from here. Anybody online with a question? Okay. Well, thank you, Wendy, for coming. I think it's gonna be a great addition to town. I think we'll end up doing something. It makes sense. And Laura, thank you for all your work on it. Just things
So
to-
should we plan to just be on like the next month's agenda but let her, take it from there in terms of the details on that? So it's a month's time to wait for that meeting, or 2 weeks?
2 weeks. Yeah. So I
Okay.
would say if we can get that information to us, Laura, so we can put it in the packet for the next meeting, it would be great.
Wonderful.
Okay. And I think our next meeting is scheduled for the 24th, correct? Okay. Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Okay, second thing, an old business yard sale. So that's going to be this Saturday from 8 to 12. I have vests for the workers. We're going to have,
I'll be bedazzling my vest.
perfect. Christine and my wife will be doing cashing out. I think Brett's going to have a couple of children helping us with parking. We're going to have about 5 or 6 volunteers. We're going to do a walkthrough tonight after the meeting to get an idea of pricing. And the idea is to get rid of as much as we can. I don't expect to get rid of everything by any means, but it's really just to give the town a chance to purchase some of this equipment that tax dollars have paid for over the years at a very low, modest price. We're not pricing it to make a bunch of money. We're pricing it to move it and to give people in town a chance to buy maybe a desk, a chair, a fixture, whatever it happens to be. All right, and again, that's this Saturday. Old business C, John Dean Gallup House rental agreement. You got an agreement in the packet. That if you had a chance to look at it, that's great. Right now, we're looking at this as a 1-year lease. I went through and highlighted some things, but I'd be glad to open discussion on the lease agreement.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. And I made some of my comments. If you go to, and this just came up at, when we were looking at the applications. This came up there. So clause number 11, tenants, maintenance and responsibilities. Number 4, tenant is responsible for grounds care, mowing the grass on a regular basis to maintain a neat appearance. So I wanted to bring that up tonight. So typically that is the case with a rental house, not an apartment, but a house. You maintain the lawn and mow the lawn. What came up during our meeting a little bit ago was if the town's already mowing the Hewitt property, is it just our best interest to have them mow that little plot of grass that's there so everything is somewhat uniform? And since we did raise the rental requirement a little bit, that helps for that. But that way we don't have to get into the issue of, okay, they didn't mow the grass in 3 weeks. How do we enforce it? I know they tried to do that in Westerly at one point last year or something. It didn't go well. But how do we enforce that after the fact? So now we have tall grass on the house side and Hewitt is always mowed nicely since it is part of a park.
Do we know if the lawnmower for sure works?
We know it doesn't work.
It doesn't
It would
work.
have to be worked on.
Because it does say in here that the following furnishings and appliances, the stove, refrigerator, dishwasher, and the riding
Yeah,
lawnmower.
I noted that. But as far as I know, it doesn't work. I mean, we could probably get it working by using Bob at the garage to get it. I'm sure you can get it running, but I'm not opposed to what Brett's suggestion is, just so it's uniform when you drive through.
Yeah.
You don't see it, everything mowed and then the high grass in one area. I just don't want to take responsibility for anything that's on that lawn. So if there's a visible fence or a grill or something, I mean, it's, if the invisible fence gets broken for some reason because the lawnmower hits it or something, I don't want to take responsibility for that, but I don't mind mowing it. We can talk to Donnie about that, but I think that would be an extra,
Yeah,
extra 15 minutes probably.
but I would add in that they're responsible for clearing snow off their driveway part. So that part that goes up behind the house.
Mhm.
So if they have to hire a plow or whatever.
So we could add in snow removal would be on there, but on theirs.
Where is does it matter or is it established what entrance they'll come in, whether it's the Hewitt farm, the Hewitt Road entrance and come down that way? They can certainly come across the bridge and up the hill. So does the town plow from Route 2 across the bridge and
Yeah,
all
because
the
that's a
way
town,
up
that's a
through?
town road, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we wouldn't plow behind
Yep.
the house.
And or next to the carriage house.
Correct.
So we would put in snow removal and we'll knock out, if it's okay with you,
I agree.
knock out
I
the
would
part
rather
on the
have it all be
grounds.
uniform and look nice.
So how do we combine the tenant's right to privacy and expectation of privacy if the highway garage is going onto the property to mow the lawn?
Because they can waive it. We can offer it, when we lease it, they can waive that if they want, and they can say, I'd rather mow it themselves, and we
Okay.
could waive it.
And if we have a person that has a pet, how do we ensure that they have cleaned up after the pet when we need the highway guys to go mow?
We can't ensure that.
You can't. Then the lawnmower just runs over it, and shreds it.
There's people that have that issue all the time, I'm sure. That's why there's little green spots on people's lawns. It's fertilizer.
I'm just saying, we don't necessarily know that the highway guys are gonna go at the same time every week or every couple weeks to do it. So that, those are all things that come into play with a
So
tenant and.
My mother has a rental and we hire a landscaper to go. There's no rhyme or reason when that landscaper shows up to mow. They're on some type of a schedule when he gets to it. I don't think that that's necessarily really outside the realm of a renter, knowing that at some point someone's going to come do the lawn. I don't even think that there's any kind of a pre-phone call or anything to let them know.
No, we could do if the renter does take our offer to have the grounds kept as far as just mowed, not trimmed, bushes trimmed, so just mowed. Then it's their responsibility to keep the yard somewhat. I mean, if I picture a family that there's no families that were looking around, but with toys over the yard.
Yeah.
And so as long as we can get there and mow and get out, I think it would make sense. If they want to waive that and say, well, I'd rather maintain my own yard, then that would be fine too, I guess. Because it's not going to change the price at all as far as the rental. Okay, was there anything else, Brett, you saw in the lease agreement?
Just clause 18, I thought was a little odd. I've never really seen that in many leases, but I think 7 days might be a little on the low side. So if somebody was going to leave for 7 days, they're going to let us know every time. I think that's a little maybe overkill. Maybe if they're gone for 2 weeks or a month, but 7 days seems like
But maybe that would help us with, I can tell the state troopers to, hey, they're going to be away for a week, keep your eye on the property, and they can drive through there more often. So I don't think it's an invasion. I think it's more just a protection. If people notice that there's no lights coming on or there's no activity for 7 days, it might get nervous. And I didn't see a problem with that one, Brett, to be honest with you.
I know that we already agreed to this. The pet situation makes me anxious. Just saying.
You're afraid of 80-pound cats, are you?
God help us. Yeah, I mean, I know that we agreed. I just would love to not have pets in there, but I'm not going to go back on what we already talked about.
So I think that there was a stipulation that was talked about, if we do agree to lease it or rent it out to someone that has pets, and if it was, let's say it's a dog that was one that like to wander, they'd have to put in an invisible fence and something to keep the dog on the property.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking more of indoors. I mean, a cat in a new environment and peeing on those wood floors, those floors
There's
are
a
amazing. That's hard to.
there's a couple of things. One is surrender. I think not surrender the president's. There's something in there where the I can't remember what number it was, but when you take possession, it has to, when you leave, whether it be a year, 2 years, 3 years, it has to be the same or better.
Yeah.
And there's a fairly hefty damage deposit also. So
What is the security deposit?
I think it's 1 month.
1 month.
$1,600.
I don't have any other issues.
Bob, did you want to add the stipulation about the electronic fence?
I think that, I don't know who's going to, what the recommendation is going to be on the renter. So I don't know if all the people that applied have pets, but we should make it, if not invisible fence, it should be at least a stipulation that if the animal was to leave the property, it would have to be on a leash. It couldn't be just let loose.
So I can tell you, so since we're talking about a rental agreement, I can tell you that we did meet the two representatives from the Hewitt property and myself and went through the applications, and we do have our recommendation for you.
So before you say that, I don't think it should matter who the prospective tenant is. I think whatever we put in here should be regardless. So just as it says, 1 cat or dog up to 80 pounds is permitted in the residence. If we feel any pet that would be outside should be on leash if outside.
So
or
what we wrote would be that either a electric fence would be installed at the owner's expense, or the dog must be on a leash at all times.
If
I mean-
So they either have to personally be walking the dog in the yard, or they have to
Yeah.
pay for. a
I mean, the
professional
only
electric
problem with
fence.
an electric fence in that situation is because so many people do bring their dogs to Hewitt. Granted, they are also supposed to be on leashes. If they're not, and they run into the yard with the dog that isn't, I mean, there still could be issues.
I don't think we do have a leash law on, do we?
dogs
I-
must be under control of
Under
owner.
control.
Under control.
There's no leash
Yeah,
law.
so
in
I mean, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. If when you go to Hewitt and people have their dogs and they're walking nicely with them, but they see another dog inside the Hewitt property. And even though there's an electric fence, that dog's going to run right in. There could potentially be issues, but
Well, that can happen if they're on a leash.
totally. Yep. You could be
Whoever
just
is
walking
renting,
on the
that
trail
dog's
and-
on the leash too.
So Brett, it was electric fence must be installed at owner's expense or pet must be on leash at all times?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
No, I'm okay otherwise.
Are there any comments from the audience? Sorry, Nita.
Have you already decided?
Is your mic on?
No, you gotta click it. Just click it one time.
Have you all now seen the people yet or not?
No. There was a subcommittee that met apparently today that was Brett Mastriani was a representative from the Board of Selectmen and then 2 Hewitt Farm committee members. And who were those? Brett? Who did you meet with?
Tim Chokus and Ed,
Oh,
the chair. So we
Okay.
met earlier at 4:30 today to go through the applications and come up with our recommendation for
Okay.
me to
okay. All right.
present to the board.
I had seen them because I saw them as they came in. I think Nicole had not seen them until now, basically, right?
And I've seen them because I was there the whole time, unless there's somebody that wasn't there.
No, there was 4 applicants and I think they get mailed out to all the Hewitt Farm committee members, correct?
Right. And they'd all been here except the one who is the one who's out west or east or
Yeah,
somewhere.
his application was in.
Oh.
He did send in an application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Laura?
I have one more question. Are we allowing people to dig up the grass to put let's say, a vegetable garden in?
I guess, I think what we did was anytime there was gonna be any kind of changes or improvements, or they have to come in,
They'd have to
go to the town and ask permission. I also said to Christine, there should be a phone number here for a contact person. So I think that in this case, it should be me or the selectman's office rather. Because I think that if, we don't want them calling the highway department or somewhere else in town, I think they should call the selectman's office if there's a problem, whether it be with the furnace or would be whatever, a lock set, whatever. Then we can determine who to send to fix the problem, if it's something that's covered by the town. If they want to do anything as far as any kind of improvements, build anything, change anything, they have to come to town and get permission, as we do with the firehouse and the new firehouse does with the town, so it's very similar. Laura?
So I just want to bring 2 concerns with the lease agreement up. I noticed the other day when I met, I don't remember who I was meeting. I spent a lot of time on Hewitt property these past couple of days. The coming from Route 2 over the bridge and taking the right on the driveway to the back side of Hewitt House, Gallup House. When you continue through from the back side to back out to Hewitt Road, you go between the outbuilding, the carriage house, and a tree. I drive a Honda Accord and it's really tight. So if you're going to have somebody plowing, like you might want to pay attention to how they're coming in, like they're going to hit the building, they're going to hit a historic tree. There's potential to do damage. It's very tight through there. The other question is too with, I have a cat. I love him, but sometimes he's kind of a jerk and he'll do something and ruin floors. There's all kinds of stuff that he can do. If you have a tenant in there for a while with a pet for a year and the animal is doing damage to hardwood floors, to historic hardwood floors, I'm not sure $1,600 is anywhere close to what can do to repair that. There's stains, there's smells, there's damage with all of that. So I just wanted to bring those 2 things. Those are the only 2 things when you guys discussed it, like concerning.
I think that's a valid point. So if I think of some of the leases that I've seen and entered into myself, there is an additional security deposit if you do have a pet. I think the last one was an extra $1,000 per dog. So that might be something we want to think about.
Also,
pet deposit.
also as landlords, we have the right for access with a 6-hour notice. So we don't have to. I know when the other family was there before, we used to inspect once a year. We can inspect if there's an animal on a more regular basis.
Okay, so playing devil's advocate, what happens if everything goes awry? I could sell my house and move in and I'd be the best tenant ever because I love the house, I love the property. What happens if they look great and they're not so great? And now we have to evict them before the year. Like, it's another concern that now you can't get into the property. Now they're damaging the property because they don't care. Now there's all these concerns that we have someone living in the town. We as taxpayers are now responsible for it. It's just it's again, like another concern that now we're landlords. We're all landlords on this.
Thank you.
We also have an online hand from Brian.
Hi, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. The only thing I'm really concerned about is you're saying that the people that lease it, they have to have their dog on a leash. Now, if they walk off the property, they can unleash it because they're on Hewitt property. Is that the way it's going to work? Because as far as I know, the Hewitt committee voted that the dog just has to be under control. And I'm one of them believers that I don't care what dog it is. I don't care how much he's had training. If a dog gets something in its mind, it's going to go, and you're not going to stop him. So being that the Hewitt property has that in place, if they walk off the land, they can take the leash off their dog and let it run.
Oh, go ahead.
You bring up an excellent point, Brian.
I would say, yes, they can follow the same rules, but they'd have to be out there with their dog across the street. I mean, you can't say because they live there that they don't have the same rights as people sitting at the pavilion or walking through the trails.
And how about if somebody else has a
That's just
dog?
my point of view on it. I don't know, Bob.
Go ahead, Brian, continue.
If somebody on a Hewitt property is letting their dog basically run, and it goes on to the property that's being leased, then what? I mean, that could cause a problem for the people in the house if they got their dog on a leash and somebody else's dogs are walking on the property where the house is. I think you just got to have a law, boom, for everything. To me, everybody ought to have their dogs on a leash over there. I don't even fish over there because the dogs run.
So I think according to Kasha, the state law is the dog either has to be on the leash or under control. So if you call the dog comes. If it's not on a leash and you call the dog and it doesn't come or it's wandering aimlessly, then you're breaking the ordinance. So that's the way it is at Hewitt Farm. And I think if the person that moves in has an animal, it would have to be, they'd have the same rights as someone else that's using the park. But on the property, we can say if you're renting, when you're on the property, the dog would have to be, if it's an electric fence, it wouldn't have to be on a leash. It could just be within the electric fence.
Okay, so there is a fence all the way around there where they know. the dog
No,
can't
electric
walk.
fence, you don't see it's under the ground, and they would, that could be a stipulation to keep
Oh.
the dog under control on the property. What we wouldn't want to have as someone move in, open the door, the dog runs out like when we were kids, Brian, you used to be able to do that all the time, but
Right.
nowadays you can't do that. And we don't want to give the dog 100+ acres of yard to run around in.
Exactly. All right, so then who installs the dog thing? The people that are renting? Or is that on the town cost?
That would be, no, if we rented to someone that had a dog, it would be up to them to install the electric fence, and then they'd have to keep the dog under control until the fence was installed. And then we could inspect and make sure that was installed.
Okay, it sounds like you covered everything. I just, I'm very leery of things like that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Okay, any other discussion?
Did you want to put in a security deposit regarding a pet? Because, I mean, that point is valid. So if we're doing 1,600 for somebody that doesn't have a pet that might damage something, or something that might urinate or things, it isn't a more costly way to something to fix.
I'm not opposed to doing the additional, because why would someone that has that, I guess, would you do that with kids? Not that we're renting out anyone with kids, but $1,000 per kid. I don't know. But I'm not opposed to doing the additional damage deposit if there's a pet. But I will tell you, with the discussion we had this evening so far, I think I have to do more self-searching as far as the applicants myself before. I know you're going to make a recommendation from the Hewitt Farm Committee, but I think I need to look at it a little bit more myself before I vote on it.
I am absolutely in favor of an additional security deposit for animals. It's not uncommon by any means.
Right. Yeah, so I would motion that we add, well, I won't motion, but I'll suggest either $500 or $1,000 addition. I'm leaning more towards 1,000.
Me too.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on this evening?
Am I taking out the lawnmower since it doesn't work?
I'll say that again.
I'm taking out the lawnmower since it doesn't work.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, let's do this. Take it out for now. And if the renter decides they want to use cut their own grass and they can get it fixed at their expense, they can have it back. Just sitting there doing nothing at this point. Maybe they can get it working. Okay, anything else on Hewitt Farm property tonight?
Well, I'll give
Yes, so
you my recommendation.
yeah, what is what we're meant to accomplish tonight with this agenda item? We're going to hear Brett's recommendation from the subcommittee and
That wasn't originally the intent, although they were able to meet tonight at 5 o'clock, so we could do that. The intent was really just to go through the lease agreement and make sure that we're all on board with the lease agreement, which we've done. If Brett would like to let us know what the recommendation was from the subcommittee, we can do that.
I'd like to hear it.
Okay, so
That they should first let us know. Don't you think that the two gentlemen should let the whole committee know what is going to happen before we make a decision to?
Well, it's a recommendation from the Hewitt Farm Committee to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen have the ultimate decision
Right.
whether we should go with that.
I know that, yes.
So,
They should at least let us know who the people are.
right, and they well, you'll hear it tonight, but you also hear it at your meeting. Part of the problem is we have a lot of stuff going on over the next
Right.
few months, so we're trying to keep things rolling.
Right.
So they weren't going to call a special meeting just to tell you who the recommendation is, because it'll be public when we say it here.
Okay.
what you could do, Nita, is
Call them all.
No, if you hear the recommendation this evening and you're not happy with it, I would reach out to the chair, or your co-chair, correct?
Okay. Yes.
So reach out to the chair and have a discussion and say if you're not happy with the recommendation. If you're not, maybe you will be.
Okay.
And then the board, they can come back to the Board of Selectmen and say, we've changed our recommendation, or
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because it wasn't a recommendation of the whole Hewitt committee. It was two
subcommittee.
people from
Subcommittee.
the Hewitt committee, and
Yeah, and we're
And
not going to
myself.
vote tonight, correct?
I feel like I need more time to look at it
Yeah,
now.
and-
that would what was
yeah, I'd
discussed,
like to hear what Brett has to say, and then I also would like more time to.
which would give you time needed to speak to the Hewitt Farm Committee.
so we went through the applications. We went through pros and cons of all the applicants, the way we saw them here. We did see the Milltown Arts proposal,
Which was amazing,
which
by the
was
way.
very nice. And I can say that we did like the idea. The three of us liked the idea, but because of no rental income from them, we felt like this wasn't an option right now. When I'm done talking, maybe. That in the future, if you can get things together and come up with a plan of paying or some kind of mitigation of costs, then it would be something that I think the Hewitt Farm Committee would look at. I mean, I can only speak for myself. I would like to see again, but at this time we put money in the budget for the rental. So then that's where we were on the Milltown. When we looked at the other three, we came out with our first recommendation that we all agreed on would be Miss McKay. And with, because she was the only applicant that talked about a pet, I think that those were the stipulations of that we would need. And so if those are in the lease for everyone, then that's great. One of the other things that came up on that application was questioning heat sources, put an additional heat source in. That was talked about, and from the subcommittee's take, they were all open with potentially looking into that as long as it was professionally done. Whether that would be a mini split system to provide AC and heat, or a stove, as long as the stove was lined correctly and professionally done. But all of that they would be open to look at, and the Hewitt Farm would be open to look at if it was paid for 100% by the tenant moving in.
I'm holding my comments till the end because I have a lot of them.
Okay. Well, that was the end of that.
So that was the end.
Go ahead with your comments, and if there's questions, I can answer them based on what we talked
So
about.
I need more explanation about the additional heating sources and what I'm concerned, confused about what the options to the tenant would be.
So the reason that came up with this application is that applicant put that in their application, that they were looking to see if there was any other systems available to them. So that's why that discussion came up, and the mini split came up because they are doing that to older homes, and they can mask it so you can't see it, but it does provide actually safety for the home because it dehumidifies while it's in there. You're not worried about air conditioning units hanging out of windows. There are some benefits to it that way, and it's an efficient.
So can you
source.
just explain in a little bit more detail a mini split?
So a mini split is a small condenser on the outside of a unit of a home or business with two tubes that go through the home, and then there's a unit on the inside.
Usually about 3 or 4 feet wide. They're white, they're this tall, this wide, and they go on a wall.
Yeah, or they make them now that they can go on the, they make a floor unit that goes into, but all that would have to be approved by this board and the Hewitt board before anything would happen. But they are open to listening to those.
When you
Thanks.
say that they are now putting them in older homes, how old are like this older homes?
Yes, this older home. Yep.
Okay.
Because the primary reason they do that is there's no ductwork involved. There's nothing involved. It's the easiest, most efficient way to do an older house to update the HVAC system.
Yeah.
And during our meeting regarding this, the benefits was the moisture reduction. It reduces mold in a home because of humidity controls.
It's probably the most efficient, but probably the least like something you'd find in an old home.
Yeah.
It's not within the spirit of the house. And I know that we've already compromised a bit going with this route. And I would not want to see a mini split in a house like this. I know it's efficient, but the house that's not the spirit of what a 1750 home is. So there's a lot of things you can do that would be more modernized that just wouldn't fit with the, with. the
So
house.
So talk, okay.
Bob, in that regard, so would you rather AC units hanging out the windows?
No,
Well, the
So
windows
are
don't
we-
open right now.
Right, so are we
would
saying
have
they're
to
not
leave
allowed
it
to
out.
put air conditioning in?
I didn't say that. But they would have to come, they would have to come through us for approval, but I would not want to see a mini split inside the house on the side of the wall.
Okay, so I guess then we need to address something like that in the lease. If they have to come to us for approval to put a window unit in, there's nothing in the lease that states that, because people that normally rent a home, if there's no air conditioning and they want air conditioning, they just,
Right,
Put a
so,
window unit
but a
in.
window unit is only in temporary and then it comes out. I know I put one in the back of my house.
I've seen some lazy people, seen them in year round, but I'm just saying, if that's the case, if you want them to come to us, we should put that in the lease
So
somewhere.
clause 12 says that the tenant will not make any repairs or alterations to the premises, including nailing holes in the walls. And usually you have to screw in an air conditioner. That, the proper way to install a window unit is to put screws in. Yes.
I've never have, but I know you can on the outside put a mount, but I haven't. I'm just saying, if those are some of our concerns, we should address those ahead of time.
Yeah, so then talk to me about the stove option.
The
mentioned.
stove option was, there was a request for a potential to look into a pellet stove. And I know some people on Hewitt were against that, some were for it. But it would come down to a proper installation of so now they put usually a 6-inch liner in a chimney to make sure everything's solid and
But I
sealed.
thought that the chimneys are closed up right now and not usable. I thought that that's what I thought in the past.
They're
meeting,
capped.
Yeah, that we
Yep.
had talked about the fireplaces not being usable, period. Did I misunderstand as far as, are they closed up physically? Like not usable because they haven't been inspected properly and it would be a hazard versus literally closed up. I don't know.
They were, I believe they were capped. Right.
Nita, can you lend any information on that?
They were capped.
They capped.
So when we say capped, what is,
Basically they seal the top, and
okay, like a reversible seal or,
usually you can unseal a chimney, yes. So like, for instance, my brother has a home from the same era, within probably 10-year difference. And when he has the same major big fireplace, like when you walk in that one, but he did put a pellet stove in because the cost of heating, things like that. And they put a 6-inch pipe with a cap on top on the chimney, and it goes right into the pellet stove. So there's no chance for things coming outside like in an old chimney. So it's a stainless steel pipe all the way up. All I'm saying is, because of the application, it talked about it. They stated that they were open to entertaining it, but not with any cost to the town. But that would be something for us to decide and them to decide
But
down the road.
we got an email from the committee that their Hewitt Farm recommendation relative to tenant use of the fireplace was that they are currently sealed and not usable. The committee voted to leave them as is and not allow use. So I don't know the subcommittee changing their mind on that today when we got it in writing prior to this.
Right, and that might have happened, but ultimately the selectmen are the deciding factor on something like that. But the only reason it was addressed is because it was in the application that they question if those things were able to be talked about. So we said, yes, they're able to be talked about pending a conversation with all of us.
Okay, anything else, Nicole? Besides the heating units?
no, not right now. Go
Yeah.
ahead. I yield the floor to you, or are we done having the conversation?
No, I think, well, I'm not in a position I want to vote on it this evening, so, and I think we should take the lease agreements home, make some more notes and have a special meeting. Doesn't necessarily have to be on a Tuesday if something else works better. We should have a meeting probably within the next week or two, or postpone this and talk about it on the 24th meeting, which still gets us someone in there by June 1st. We have There's a few things that have to be done on the house. I have to talk to Bob Dunn from the UFAM committee as far as the floorboards and so on. So go ahead, Brett.
I'm just thinking, if that's what we're doing, I would think we need a special meeting before. I think if we're looking to really rent it out June 1st, to not let anyone know until after the 24th with a week's notice to say, yep, you got it, you're in next week.
I mean, we
I
can
think
prorate
that's-
it. I mean, right? I mean, if we have a move-in date of June 15th.
I think one of the applicants could move into July 1st, if I'm not mistaken. So we could do that. We could have a meeting. Is there, so we have a referendum on Monday. We have a Tuesday, I have a convention I have to go to. So must we do a late in the afternoon? Oh, you can't, you're working. How's your work schedule? Is it 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day?
During the day is very, very challenging for me, but I could probably make anything after 5 o'clock.
Okay.
But I do think maybe we discuss what other questions we might have tonight. So if we need to find things out by then, we can work.
I don't
on
have
it.
any other questions. I just want to go through the lease, the applications again and look at the applicants before I vote.
I think Nicole might spinning around.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about any of the other stuff?
I don't think so right now.
Okay. And one more comment before we move is the other thing with the Milltown application is it was because we've put that revenue in our budget, and that was what we talked about. So we did say if that was an option for the selectmen, then we would have to readdress everything we've
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
So
decided.
can I ask you, Laura, what situation you're in right now so let's just explore the scenario of having Milltown Arts
Yeah.
rent it.
Okay.
Talk to us about, and the presentation, things we talked about that day in the open house. Love everything, but
Thank
talk
you.
to us about the income and payment and what are you proposing with the town? When are you proposing it? And when do you anticipate being able to have enough for a $1,600 rent?
So thank you for even entertaining this idea. I think it would be a great opportunity for North Stonington to have we have a lot of centers for our town. Like, I think when you have small children, the schools are really the heart of the town for you. I think for some of us, the brewery is probably the heart of the town for us. I think for others, the library is the heart of the town. Like, I think it's a really great place. I'm envisioning Milltown Arts to be one of those places, to encompass families and families with older children and families without children and older couples who are trying to stay in town and stay up to date on things within their town. Like, I'm really envisioning more of a community center than I am a museum or an art gallery or something like that. So we are currently, I'm in contact with an attorney. We are going to become an LLC, which would be our first step in getting our 501c3 status. I'm envisioning that. I would have to speak with them to find out whether that could be done by the end of the year. He assures me it's probably a couple of months process. So I'm hoping by September, we would be an actual LLC with a 501c3 status. Once we gain our 501c3 status, I will be seeking grant money through the Cultural Coalition, through Chelsea Groton Bank, through the Connecticut Department of Arts and Culture. There are a lot of places where I can seek out money for something like this. It would be, I'm going to guess, a year, because now, so the grants would close in, say, October, November. They don't really fund until the spring. So now I'm back in April and here we are in May. So before I even see cash with this, In the interim and next summer, I'm going to say I would have to defer to my husband on how many in-kind hours I have spent on bringing a farmer's market to North Stonington. I think Brett could probably speak for me. I'm going to guess we're in the hundreds of hours. I'm working with Sue Starr on a couple of different art exhibits in the library. We're doing some end plan air events. I spoke to you guys that were set in July. We're going to have some artists come to downtown and paint the village. I think it'd be really fun. I'm working with, I approached the Historical Society about getting together and doing something either on the Historical Society lawn or with the Historical Society in conjunction with maybe an art show between Milltown Arts and the Historical Society. I think Milltown could really bridge the gap between a lot of existing entities in North Stonington that aren't maybe being utilized to their greatest potential. I think the library does an amazing job, but I think others of us could use help. When I talked to Jen Strunk, if Milltown Arts had our 501c3 status, we could actually team up with the North Stonington Light Parade and get them on board under Milltown, and then they would also have a 501c3, a tax exempt status that they could use. With me taking classes and learning how to write grants and getting more information and experience under my belt, I could reach out to the Historical Society and actually help them apply for grants and make them a little bit stronger and more involved in the community. I think we all love the town, but right now I'm going to guess 18 months easy, probably, but it would be in kind. I think the current farm market could easily flow into a bi-monthly, every 2 weeks market next year. We have a lot of excitement. We have a lot of momentum. The things with Milltown doing shows. When I reached out to the high school and middle school about doing a Milltown Arts art show for the students, they were already involved with 2 facilities outside of town. And to be able to bring that kind of thing to town where we're not going to Westerly and we're not going to Stonington Borough to see someone's grandchild's artwork that goes to Wheeler, like you are coming to North Stonington because we're now a destination. I think that's really great. And I jokingly say I'm friends with the woman who spearheaded the sub trail in Groton. And I think it would be really fun if we had some kind of like arts and farm trail here in North Stonington, because I mean, we have beautiful roads that nobody sees. We have amazing locations that nobody goes to. To get a focus on that, I don't want to change the traffic, but I would like someone to say, hey, what's this awesome place we're driving through? It looks like we should stop, versus where's the casino? How am I going to get to Mystic? What's on the way to the beach? I feel like we've been a pass through for a long time. And I think it's time to change that into maybe, I think the brewery has really helped us put us on the map. And then I think getting an arts association and a community center, something like that, putting on music, putting on art shows, putting on something would actually get more people to come and stay and stop in our town.
So Laura, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are you, so with the proposal that you sent in?
Yeah.
Are
There's
you
no money.
right? So you're basically saying that you think we should
It would
be
be no
looking at this,
worse.
that saying,
Correct.
hey, this is more important. This is a bigger benefit to the town than the $19,200 would be.
100%, yes. So we, as a town, have worked to restore and refurbish the John D. Gallup house. To have it go back into a private residence would not only take it out of the town's hands, and I am not in any way, shape, or form versed in tenant renters law, but I believe if they get in there and don't leave, we've all got a problem. Milltown Arts, if we were in there, if you needed to replace the windows in November, not a problem. You can have all week. You can have all month. I don't care. When you come in to mow the lawn, doesn't matter. What are you going to do? You need to come in to fix something in the attic, in the basement, in the garage. You want to store stuff? Fantastic. It's still the town's property. It's different when it's someone's residence. And I understand we wouldn't be living there. And I understand there's a concern that we want to have maybe some noise at night. So like we're deterring animals or bats or mice or anything like that. I'm pretty sure I could solve that with a Google smart speaker and some pretty loud music. But like, I think there are other solutions to using that as than a residence. Though my husband says I need to step back from a lot of things, Milltown Arts is not something I'm going to step back from. The farm market, unfortunately, would probably be the first thing I would step back from. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of organization. It takes a lot of moving pieces. And it's been a great group I've been working with, but it's a lot of hours. And it just kind of landed in our laps. It's not necessarily something I said, we need to have a farm market. I actually go to the Stonington one. But I would love to have one here in town. I think a lot of people would love to have one here in town. My husband and I, now that our kids are older and out of school and can watch themselves and can cook for themselves, we go to music in places, we go to wineries, we go to breweries, we go to restaurants, we go to lawns to listen to music, to watch plays. Why I can't do that in my own hometown is crazy. But yeah, we can't pay anything. I'll get back to that. Like I have no money. I have about, I've been scratching to come up with $1,000. I raised $1,300 for the farm market with the t-shirts. I'm still trying to raise more money with that. I've been trying to desperately connect with Alexis from the Sustainability Committee to see how Milltown can start their first fundraiser. I think I'm going to be laying out the money out of pocket to become an LLC because I'm kind of locked into nothing until we are actually have a tax-free status. However, leave the heat at 50. I don't care, right? I don't want a wood stove. I think an alternate heating source is only going to cause more smoke. Why? Like it's just causing, like living in the building is just in and of itself through no fault of anybody's own, just causing more damage to it. We wouldn't be living there. I'll never shower at that building. I mean, I don't have to worry about mildew. I don't have to worry about the pipes leak. Well, I don't have to worry about the showers causing damage on outside stuff. We would probably search to utilize one restroom kind of a thing versus all of the restrooms. It's a big house and there are some smaller rooms. The only thing about the house that really doesn't sit well with me is it's not accessible to all. I think it's an older home and there are all steps and the floors are uneven. So wheelchair accessibility is kind of out of the question. But to be able to somehow come up with a plan to make it accessible to the most residents we could, I think would be great. And I know sometimes, as Brett says, I can send a real curt email. But I try to do the best for my town and I try to do the best by Hewitt property. It is an absolute gem. And I think being able to get more out of the town is worth more than 19,000. I can't quantify how many concerts and farmers markets and all of that stuff. I tried sitting down to write it down and I got real frustrated with how much time I was putting into it. But we can make a lot of things happen. I can make a lot of things happen. I know a lot of fun people that want to make a lot of fun things happen. And I'm just the one that is actually willing to do the book work for this.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
I would just say that your application was my favorite application for all the things you just said. You should be an attorney because that was wonderful. However, there is the part that is financial. And I think it's a great idea. And my own opinion, not the board's, I think it's a great idea that might be a year and a half away. I could see it becoming everything you want it to be, or the town would want it to be. But the taxpayer right now is saying we haven't got to pay. We spent money on that building now for 3 years. If we were able to bring in 19.2 for 2 years or 3 years before, and then a tenant moved out, now the building's empty, that money would then help us put a new roof on the building, put new siding on the building without the taxpayer paying any additional funds. It has to start paying for itself. And we've been put on, luckily we got some grants, but we've had to match some of those grants. So I think your ideas are wonderful. And if we're still all around in 3 years, maybe we'll get to see it come through, or 2 years. But I think that right now, we'd be doing a disservice to the taxpayer who's seen that building sit there for 3 years with all this promise, and we've put money into it, and they've seen nothing come back. It's not as easy to measure how you describe what it would be. You can't measure that as you can measure dollars and cents. We can measure 19.2. You can't measure the positives for the town. We just know when they start that we know they're there. We feel them, we kind of see them. But I would say that if we're going to get a pushback on your idea, it would be strictly for the financial part of it.
I understand that part. My main concern is that we'll lose it. Something will happen. The house won't be there. Milltown will have moved on. It will always be a residence. It will never have reached the potential it could. And again, it doesn't have to be Milltown. Maybe Rec, maybe somebody else. But I feel strongly that the town should not be renting it as a residence. And $1,600 a month, it's fantastic. In this market, I would actually sell my house so I could move in there. Like it's like, there's nothing like, I don't know why you would want to support me. Like why? Because then I would have a ton of money that I just sold my house and now I'm living in this very inexpensive house. Like I understand I might lose my shirt and oil this winter. I might, but I think it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be a tough row to hoe for the town to have a renter in there. And then we have to replace all their windows. In November, was that the last meeting? We're going to replace all the windows in November?
September, maybe.
Yeah. Like, and then the
But we would do
roof
that
needs to be
anyway.
done. Like,
I mean, if Milltown Arts was in there, we would still want to replace the windows.
yeah, but I'm not living there. You can have all the time you want. You could do in December. But yet, don't lose something. Don't lose sight of what could potentially be amazing for something that probably shouldn't have been added to the budget if it wasn't rented in the first place. That's not my responsibility. That as a chairperson of another committee, I would have never put money that I didn't have into a budget that was going to be voted on by townspeople. And I understand nothing has happened, but if all of a sudden everyone is enjoying it, everyone is coming, everyone is like, look at this beautiful home that we have that is now a centerpiece of our town, I think you would get more support for it. I think you absolutely would get more support.
Thank you.
Laura, I just want to say, I understand where you're coming from about the money in the budget, but I mean, we had this as a pretty much locked guarantee that it would be rented out. People would be interested in it and would sell. I do love your idea. I loved looking through like the pictures of what it would look like inside and the potential. Yeah, it is great. And I do like the idea of someone not renting it and more of the community being able to use it and see it and be there. I think the downside for us, especially me, is we haven't had enough feedback from people coming and say, look, I'd rather you not spend, I'd rather us not take $19,000. I'd rather us keep it for the community. The downside is we haven't had that from the community, and there's no way for us to really ask the community for that kind of feedback to be able to say, okay, look at this overwhelming support of saying, hey, we don't want the 19,000. We want it as a community center or for Milltown Arts, or just open for the public to be able to use at different times. I'm not saying I don't think that's a great idea. I do. I just wish that we could say firmly, look at them. This is what people really wanted. They don't care about the $19,000.
Did you ask?
We have public meetings, and that's where we hope people come speak up and let their voices be heard.
I will bring them next time. There are lots of supporters. I've talked. I try not to be necessarily political. I don't belong to one particular political party or not. I feel like I've pressed a lot of flesh with this. I've tried to get a lot of ideas. I've tried to get a lot of feedback on this. I will, since there's a lot of feedback on Facebook, I can certainly put the entire proposal out on Facebook so you can see what everybody thinks. I chose to come to you because as our town leaders, you should be coming to us saying, hey, guess what? There's another opportunity. I did not circumvent that. I did not go around anyone. I have not been trying to hide anything. I have not been trying to manipulate it in any way, shape, or form. I want my town to know there's an option. And as you've said before, it would ultimately be up to the Board of Selectmen to get that information to them. It's not me. I am not going to people's mailboxes and putting handwritten notes on them. We've all been there. I am not putting
Laura, I think
signs
there's-
up.
I think there's something else. We took that building over, it was being rented, correct? When we took it from the Mystic Seaport, we bought the property, it was being rented at the time. So we'd be looking at a change of use. If we go to change of use of a town property, I think we'd have to go to a town meeting.
Perfect. Then they
Well,
would
we're
know.
also, but here you are with this great presentation at the 11th hour when we're picking who's going to rent it, and we're hearing this great opportunity at the 11th hour when, as you said, the budget's been set. There's money in the budget coming from this property. Again, I think it's a great idea, and maybe there's a compromise. Maybe if we end up renting this house to someone who doesn't need the carriage house, maybe they don't need it. Maybe we can have Milltown not use the carriage house as a place to start until.
Yeah, but there's no facilities there. There's no water. There's no bathroom. There's like, you couldn't use it. And the downstairs is 6 feet tall. Like, I don't know if you've been in the downstairs, but you could, again, it's great if it were for Milltown. It's fine if it's not, but it is an option available to our town. So I did meet with the Hewitt Farm Property Committee several months ago, almost not a year, probably like October, maybe October, somewhere in there, only because I didn't realize and hadn't come in because I didn't know, as a citizen of my town, I didn't know you were looking to rent it as a residence. I came in because I didn't know. So my guess is that is a miscommunication or a lack of communication on both ends.
Well, if it was in October, this board hadn't been seated yet because we didn't get seated till
So
mid-November. So
you can blame everything you want on the former one. I spoke with them. I didn't speak with the former Board of Selectmen. I spoke with the Hewitt Farm Property Committee. So I have been in it, and I do not go to town meetings all the time. But my guess is all three of you could say you've seen my face a couple of times. So I am here because I think a mistake is being made.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other comments before we move on in the agenda test this evening? Anything online? Any comments in person? No. Brian Rathman?
Yeah, I just didn't know if you go to rent it out, since the town, as far as I know, it was all the taxpayers that bought that land and we funded all the money for it. So if we go to rent it out, can we put in there that I'm going to say it wrong, preference be to North Stonington? If somebody in North Stonington puts in to rent it, can we put that as a preference? I mean, if
Brian, we had this
rent it from
application.
out of town is, you don't know the people from out of town usually.
No, but if we get rented from someone from out of town, then now they are living in town. So no, you can't put that as a preference at this point, Brian, because we've already gone through the application process. That would have had to
okay.
been suggested a while ago, but I don't see that as a fair market thing to do at this point. It'd almost be discrimination, saying that you're discriminating against someone who doesn't live in town.
Well, I've just gone by it because we paid for it. The taxpayers paid for it.
We do, and you also elected town officials who are sitting here as your Board of Selectmen, and you have us to make these kind of decisions. So I understand what you're saying, but if we asked, that's why we have referendums, and you'll get a chance to vote on the budget on Monday evening, because those are what we do with things like budgets. But something like this, you're counting on your town leaders to make these decisions. We've had plenty of open meetings, as Brett had mentioned. And I think to change and have a preference on that now would be kind of late in the game. And again, I would consider it a form of discrimination at this point. So we wouldn't want to do that.
Well, did we vote on that to rent it out or not? Because if I
don't think we
remember
had to-
right, when we bought that property, we had like 28 different things, and I think it seems to me the Gallup house, they weren't sure what we were gonna do with it. And that told me that the town taxpayer, the townspeople would be able to vote on what to do with that house. That's the only thing. I didn't know it was just gonna be left up to the selectmen.
Well, I think at the time when we bought the property, the house was already being lived in. It came as part of the property. The tenants came with the property. So that question wouldn't have been asked at the time. I'd have to look at the bullet points again to see if we agree to always have it a rental or not. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, because I thought anything goes on with that house had to go to a town meeting. That's the way I understood it when we voted for all those different things, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
Christine, you have the
Thanks.
28 bullet points. Hang on one second, Brian. Wait, I'm having Christine look up those 28 bullet points and see if there's something about the rental.
Brian, are you saying you'd prefer not to rent it out? I'm just trying to understand.
No,
part
no,
of your-
no. I think from listening to what was just said, I mean, I think it's important that everybody's on board with everything. And if the town is supposed to vote on it, then they should be able to vote on it. To me, yeah, anything that's going to bring in money for our town is fine with me. As
I
far as
mean,
I'm concerned,
By,
there's a lot of
by
things-
state statute, we're supposed to vote on any rental of town property. But our understanding was since it's already been being rented out, we don't have to go to the town for,
It's not a
For-
change.
it's not a change of,
So Brian, there was not one of the 28 questions that was voted on at that town meeting, and it is because there was a tenant that was in there when we bought the property. We bought the property with the tenant. There was also a tenant in the other property at that time as well. But it was that same tenant that we had until we kicked them out in 2018, so that we could do the paint abatement. And as long as we keep it rented as a residence, then we don't have to do any sort of a change of use or go to a town meeting. We verified that with the town attorney. It would only be if we were changing what was happening with the building that we would need to talk to zoning, and we would need to potentially go to a town meeting, depending.
I just feel that we bought a piece of property, but I don't feel like I have a lot of say in it. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
Bye-bye.
Any other discussion before we move on? Okay, seeing none. Number 7, RFP demolition for portion of 298 Norwich Wesley Road. I really thought this was going to be the item that was going to get the most conversation this evening, but maybe not. So basically what we've done is we've taken the original RFP, we've upgraded it a bit. I've had some help with this from one of our Board of Finance members who does this as a living. We also got some help recently from a person from AZ Construction who was able on his own time to look through it and give us some suggestions. The only thing that has to change on this, and you probably haven't a chance to read it totally, but we have to put dates in for when things are going to happen. Like there's going to have to be a walkthrough. There's going to have to be a date that we're going to send the RFP out when we expect the RFP to come back, and so on. So other than the dates, which we can determine, and I'd like to get this, we want to have a board of town meeting sometime in June. I think we're leaning towards June 21st. So if we're going to have a town meeting on June 21st, there's a set of deadlines we have to meet. Meaning that if you agree to have us as a Board of Selectmen agree to send this RFP out within the next few days, and all it has to do is be updated with dates at this point. We can get then and have it out for 3 weeks with time, which is what the suggestion was from the individual from the Board of Finance, again, who does this for a living. That would be enough time to get in a proper amount of bidders to do a walkthrough with description of what work has to be done. And then be able to bring that information to the town for a town meeting to decide if the town wants us to demo the building, because we'll have all our numbers and pricing in at that time. So I guess the question tonight is, can the town of North Stonington go out for an RFP to get numbers so we can present them at the next town meeting.
How different is this from the one that went out last time?
It's not a lot different, Brett. It's probably about 80% of it's the same. Some of the way we want them to report is a little bit different. We want to get breakdowns on what it would, individual breakdowns on what it would cost for the new wall to seal up the building that's going to stay. Remediating all the PCBs and asbestos and whatever else is in the building, lead paint. What we're doing with the furnaces and the kitchen equipment before was they're going to be refurbished for reuse. Now we're having this part of the bid that the bidder would take that with them and give us a discount on the bid, knowing that they took all the kitchen equipment and the furnaces and they can get whatever they can get for them, but it would be included as a decrease in their bid by taking that equipment off our hands. I can't see us having all this equipment sitting on the ground with the canvas over them, trying to sell kitchen equipment and have it sit there for month after month. And we can just get, I mean, we see what we have in the two-story wing now with all the stuff that's sitting there we're trying to get rid of. And I don't want to go through that again. So getting the breakdown makes sense to do it that way.
Does it, as I look through, does it address any, so some feedback that I heard regarding the last one was that sometimes the cost might have come in higher than necessary because the contractors, the way it was written, bid pretty much all the demolition as the material coming out of the facility was contaminated, so hot material.
Mhm.
And some of the feedback was if there was a way to break that down where the bidder didn't have to look at all the material as contaminated and they were only dealing with what, if there was a way for them to know what really was contaminated, it would cut down our costs completely. So some of them recommended that the town pay for the disposal of the hot material separately. So there's the demo and then the payment of that, what is really contaminated compared to a company saying, look, we know there's some in there. We have to bid it that it's all contaminated. That was just some of the feedback from the last go round. So I don't know if any of that was addressed with this or if that was discussed.
Well, in the bid package, there'll be a complete Eagle environmental breakdown, which is, I think, 99 pages long or 100 pages long, which will be in there identifying what that is. Also, when it was originally done with Downs, the contractor, they were tacking on monies because now they're the general contractor. So they were putting money on all the different bidders who are bidding. We're the general contractor. The town's the general contractor in this demo. So we're not going to be tacking on a fee on top of each person that bids. So that should keep the price down. However, we did find out this does have to go out as a prevailing wage job, which means that it's a municipal job, but they get paid more money than if it was a job being done at your residence. The reason being is we're using ARPA funding, which is federal and state funding. So it has to be prevailing wage because of that. And also because it's a municipal job that's over $100,000 in total dollars spent.
So that drives up the cost.
It does, but
Can you
what,
explain to me prevailing?
so prevailing wages, let's say that the average plumber gets $35 an hour. Then there's another fee put on top of that, which could be another $20 an hour. Prevailing wage jobs are always more expensive labor-wise. And the way that all states have prevailing wages jobs on state jobs, this is considered a state job.
What's the rationale for that?
Probably
Unions.
union driven, and I have no
Union
idea why.
driven.
But when we built the new schools was prevailing wage. Anytime you do municipal jobs, it's prevailing wage if it's over a certain amount. In this particular case, again, using federal funds or state funds, ARPA money, it makes us have to go that route. The good news is when Downs bid this the first time, it was bid as a prevailing wage job. So we're not going to see this giant change. Yes, it's been 3 years since it was bid the last time, but we're not going to see this giant jump because it was bid as a non-prevailing wage job the first time, and now it has to be prevailing wage this time.
Do we know what that bid was?
Yeah, we have all the bids from 2018, 19, and 20, what it would escalate as.
gotten bids 3 years in a
Well,
row.
they gave it to us in 2018 and they
Yeah.
should put the escalation fee for each year.
And where are they in the ballpark figure of?
Back
what?
then, the highest bid, which is 2020, I think was around $1.3 million. And that was prevailing wage too.
And those were the times where I heard that part of it was because of the way the package was written.
One thing that was added to this package, to answer your question, Brett, is there's the question, if you know a more efficient, more economic way to do this, that would cost the town less money, it's in there and asked, explain how to do it and what your price is to do it that way.
Oh, that's great.
So that is in here.
So on page 5, it breaks down the scope of work into the different sections. And it does specifically call out abating the structure to be demolished. So they can kind of see the full scope of what needs to get done. And then as Bob said, there's a section in here that if you want to suggest alternate ways to bid it out, they can go ahead and do so.
It's actually on page 18, voluntary alternatives, description of alternative, range of cost saving, range of scheduled savings.
All right. So,
Right.
so I'd like to make a motion, but you want to put dates in here. as-
We don't have to do them tonight, but I'll be putting them in the next couple of days. I don't think we need to have us vote on dates, except I want you to agree with or not agree with a three-week timetable once we put it out. And then within a week after we put it out, we'll schedule when we put it out, we'll schedule a walkthrough, a mandatory walkthrough, but that typically happens about a week after the bids go out, so people get to see the bids and see if they want to bid on it. So let's say they go out on Thursday, we probably sometime at the end of the following week, would do a mandatory walkthrough, where I would walk through with probably the gentleman from the Board of Finance to help me with this, just as an overseer, make sure we're asking the right questions, giving the right answers. And explain what we wanted to come down, what we wanted to save, what we didn't want to save. There's things outside the building, like there's that bell, there's the monument, there's the flagpole, there's a bench. There's things like that that were memorials that we want to make sure don't get damaged. They're still here when the building's done. Whether they have to move them and bring them back, we have to keep them safe or cover them. Or, however it's going to be, these things can't be destroyed. So those are the kind of things you do during a walkthrough.
And then in this is what the outside should look like when it's done. So I know with some of the school building projects, some of the fields got a little destroyed and didn't get back to where they were prior. I'm just wondering, in here, what are we saying that we want? What's the outside going to be? Just,
Well, that's in the spec sheet, but basically all we're asking for is to have it graded and seeded.
so just great, at least graded makes me feel comfortable.
Graded and
And
seeded,
seated?
graded and seeded. So all we're gonna have was a lawn. Then once we have that lawn, then the town can over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, decide
Decide
what they
wants
want to do with it, if anything.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we approve and send this RFP out.
I second.
Oh, Joe, just you're next if you're gonna stay. You're next on the agenda if you want to stay. We're at number 7 and you're number 8. And they already made a motion. I just don't want to see you leave and then we start talking about what you want to talk about. So, okay, so there's been a motion and a second, correct? Okay. Any other further discussion? Okay, then I would say that the motion is for us to be able to put this out for an RFP. We'll plug in the dates over the next day or so. And you're good with the 3 weeks, I take it, and we're gonna do a
Yeah, at least 3
walkthrough.
weeks.
Okay,
That's standard.
yes.
What's the tentative date you're thinking this will be going out?
I'd like to have this out before the end of this week.
My tentative closing date is June 3rd.
June 3rd?
June 3rd is the tentative
Okay.
closing date.
Okay. Okay, and then with no other discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, 3-0. Perfect. Next, number 8, appointments. Juvenile Review Board. We have Mr. Gross here. Joe, would you like to speak on this at all? Do you want us to just talk about it? Okay, so there's an appointment that was brought to us by Joe, who's the chairperson of the board. 2 positions will be vacated on the Juvenile Review Board effective May 2022. Those positions are 1 an at-large member for a 3-year term and 1 is an alternate at-large member for a 1-year term. I am submitting Joe Gross for reappointment to the JRB for the at-large 3-year position and Cheryl Beekert to be reappointed as the at-large 1-year position.
So moved.
Okay. So I motioned, we have a second, any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, 3-0. Joe, did you want to say anything to us about that? Do you want to follow up with anything, or are you good? Did you want to say anything more about this, or are you all set? We voted to approve, so you're good? All right, thank you so much.
Joe, thank you for the data that you brought. Thank you.
Okay. Let's get back to the agenda. Minutes, Nicole.
Tax refunds?
So, yeah, I got something.
Oh, tax refund, I'm sorry. There was 2 tax refunds. One Robert Malinowski, $144.72, and one JP Morgan Chase, $164.40, total $309.12. I hear a motion that we approve the refund of those tax.
Motion to
refunds.
approve.
Second.
Okay, motion approved in a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, minutes.
I make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington's Board of Selectmen special meeting minutes from April 19th, 2022 at 6:30 PM as written.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve April 19th minutes as submitted by Ivana Hugo, seconded by Brett. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. One other set of minutes, isn't there? Nope, I guess not. Why do we have the,
The call for the meeting is contained in the minutes so that she didn't have to type out the call for the meeting in the body of the minutes.
understood, thank you. Smart thinking on your part, Ivana. Just saying. Okay, public comments. There is no public here. Any public online would like to speak?
Brian.
Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I just noticed that the yard sale on the 14th, I said, hey, help, but I can't. I got a family gathering that day. So I won't be able to come down and help you guys. Just
Oh,
wanna
I'm sorry,
let you
Ryan.
know.
Thank you. Thank you for offering, though. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
offering.
Yep.
Want us to save anything for you?
I'd love to look at some of them tools down there, but I know they're not up for sale.
Yeah.
That is correct.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a next meeting scheduled for May 24th. Did we want to talk about a meeting prior? Or do we, for the,
On Hewitt.
on Hewitt, or do we want to have it on the 24th?
I'm open to either. I mean, it would be a quick meeting. I don't know how much sooner we'd be able to meet.
I could do it at 5, or can do it on Monday or Tuesday. We could do it next Friday. I could do it Wednesday or Thursday if we did it at 7. Or if we, yeah,
Board of Finance.
Board of Finance this Wednesday coming up. That would leave Thursday or Friday.
Next week is.
I could do,
I mean,
I could do Thursday at 7, or I could do Friday at any time.
My week's pretty.
I'm fine Thursday or Friday.
I'm not good Thursday. I'm not Friday. It's prom night.
You know, it's just a busy week because we have so
Yeah,
much
it's
going
so-
on.
And I know we don't like any other time, but is there like a morning we could?
Well, it's just that she's working.
So if you called out, I could phone in. I wouldn't be able to come in
We could do a
person.
hybrid.
And if you give me a suggested day and time, I could look to see if I could call in.
Yeah, because I can make any of the like mornings or early afternoon
So
work, but
we could do a hybrid. It still would have to be a meeting. We would
Right.
call it and advertise it. But hybrid, for anyone that would want to listen, would be fine. One thing we don't want to do, we mentioned this, and we haven't done it, is make our meetings moving targets, right? We
Yeah.
don't make sure that everyone knows when they are and they're open to the public. So, but in this particular case, we have discussed you at Farm quite a bit, so it's really just a matter of discussing the applicants. If we wanted to do something next week during the day, is it morning or afternoon better for you, Nicole?
Which day are you looking at?
I'm just looking at next week, so we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Just you give me a date and we can probably come up with a time. I mean, I look like I'm pretty much free all day Wednesday.
How
all
early,
day-
how early is early? How,
We can do it, well, we want to be able to make it so it's
Like
not
9
totally
o'clock or
inconvenient for
something.
the general public either, so. Would it be better for you to do it at lunch, after lunch, before lunch?
so on Monday, I could do 10 a.m.
I could do 10 a.m. on Monday also.
I can do 10 a.m.
Do we have enough time to do a hybrid meeting, Christine? And we do, right? The only thing on the agenda would be you at Farm. We'll make it a one agenda meeting. Hybrid, 10 o'clock. So Brett, you and I could come here and set up here, and then you could do it remotely, Nicole?
Yes.
Perfect. And of course, it would be open to the public. We could have public comment, one agenda meeting.
We can't do it here because we have a referendum on Monday.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
We can do it at town hall.
Are
The
we set
tax
up-
office is open.
Huh?
The tax office
We can
is
do it.
open.
Oh,
So
we can
can't-
open up Bob's office.
We could
For
do,
public.
but we don't have hybrid capabilities in my office, do we?
You got a laptop, you turn it on.
We could have a Zoom only meeting.
We could do that. Do a Zoom only meeting on Tuesday, on Monday rather,
Right, so.
Monday at
video or
10, Zoom
call.
only.
Okay.
from my office. She'll be remote,
Mhm.
and anyone else that wants to join through Zoom, they could join. Perfect.
Sounds good.
Okay. That seems good. And that gives us the weekend to kind of go through all those. I'm gonna have to get the copies back too, because you
Yep.
sent them out to you at Farm, but I don't think,
I just emailed them to Nicole during the meeting. I'll forward them to you tomorrow morning so that you have the digitals as well.
can I just look at the originals?
I mean, I guess if
I
you
gave
want
you, didn't I
to.
give you copies? just now?
We, I
Did you?
think, is this not what? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Laura's looks really pretty digital.
I don't think you gave me copies, Brett.
Oh, I got it.
Well, if he's got copies, then I'll give you a copy.
Yeah, here, I got copies, everybody.
Okay, so we'll do that on Monday at 10, Zoom only, then we'll do our next meeting in person, May 24th, which would be a hybrid meeting. Okay, entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Yeah, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Good night. Thank you.